Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to attend this community meeting. I'm sort of going to be just the MC for the evening, bring members of the District 3, State Highway District 3 team up to talk about individual aspects of the project as noted in your agenda today. First will be Ms. Kate Mazzara. She is the Assistant District Engineer for District 3 for Project Development. She'll go over the history of the project and talk a little bit more about some of the aspects of the project. Kate?
Thank you, Christopher. As Christopher said, I'm the Assistant District Engineer for Project Development. My office is mainly responsible for what we consider system preservation types of projects for both Montgomery and Prince George's County, the majority of which this involves resurfacing of our roadways. So history in this project is really for the past probably about 5 years. We've been looking at this portion of Maryland 410. The pavement has been deteriorating, and we've been receiving a lot of complaints about potholes and the roads in need of patching. So at that point, we did go ahead and proceed with the design of a resurfacing project. As part of our resurfacing projects, we look to deep patch roadways, do some minor drainage improvements, such as replacing inlets if necessary. We look at any guardrail issues, as well as we are required to look at upgrading existing sidewalks to be, the ramps to be ADA compliant, and generally look at ADA access through a corridor. With that, we went ahead with our design, and actually, because the road had deteriorated such a significantly, we actually went ahead with most of the patching last year. And now, at this point, we're moving forward with just the resurfacing and the ADA improvements to the sidewalk. And that's pretty much the history and the scope. So do you want me to go ahead and call up Alvis and Kevin? Okay, and let him kind of talk about, now that the project's actually moved into the construction phase, what you can expect.
Thank you, Kate. My name is Kevin Nowak. I'm the Assistant District Engineer for Construction, Prince George's and Montgomery counties. Kate just described the scope of work for the active job on Ethan Allen right now, but I can also speak about the other project we have scheduled for resurfacing on Maryland Route 410, as well as the bridge job that is active on New Hampshire Avenue. I'll take the first project that Kate spoke of first. I'll give you some details. We started it this past March, last month, and by contract, we just don't let the contractor that we have just work at their own pace. We actually allow them a certain amount of what we call working days to complete the project. That's in the interest of just getting it done and getting it over with within a reasonable amount of time. On this particular project, we have allowed 61 working days. Now, working days is a little different than calendar days because we usually don't work on weekends or holidays or something like Christmas or Thanksgiving. We'll actually stop work for several days. But anyway, 61 working days is the duration of the contract, which equates to a estimated completion date in July of this year. So we'll be done probably midsummer of this year. Right now, I went through the project this morning. The guys were over by Jackson Street working on some of the new ADA ramps that are out there that are proposed, and they'll be gradually working their way towards the fire department area in the next few weeks. I've got the grinding and paving segments of the project scheduled for June, and right now all the work you've seen so far has been mostly confined to daytime hours. When we get into the paving, that may change, and the reason I'm saying that is that with the fact that the roadway is a two-lane roadway. If you notice how we're operating right now, we're using what we call a flagging operation, meaning only one lane of traffic can get through at a time. So under those conditions, we usually don't start till 9 a.m. in the morning, and we pick up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which only gives us 6 hours to work during the day. Generally, when it comes to grinding and paving, we scrape 2 inches of the old asphalt off and repave with 2 inches of new asphalt and put down new pavement markings. So in the interest of getting material to the job from a plant that will most likely be probably in Rockville or northern Montgomery County, as well as production, probably have those activities scheduled for the evening hours. I don't expect them to exceed probably a week each, week for grinding, week for paving. Any specific questions about the construction activities to date or what we have planned? Yes, ma'am.
What do you mean by evening hours?
Okay, we work around evening and morning rush hour. When I say nighttime hours, usually we'll set up a lane closure about 9 o'clock, 9 p.m., maybe 10. I've got to check. Usually it depends on how bad the rush hour is. If we start and traffic is just totally backed up, we'll push that start time back maybe an hour or two. And we'll generally run till they've got to be totally off the road usually by 5 a.m. in the morning. There are some things that they have to do prior to that, so the trucks, the other machinery involved will generally be finished about 3:30. Any line striping has to be put down on a temporary basis will be done usually between 3:30 and 5. Yes, sir.
Bus stops. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, there are some bus stops being put in that were not there before.
Sir, I tell you what, that's probably a design question. I've got it on the plan to put it in. Kate could probably speak to that on that. Do you have anything else that I could relate to construction?
What about the noise levels for the nighttime construction, the grinding and the paving?
Oh, okay. Montgomery County does have a noise ordinance. State and federal agencies are exempt. However, we are extremely aware of where we are. I mean, we're right in the middle of a residential area. For that reason, when we run these jobs, there are some noises that are extremely high in terms of decibels. That's saw cutting, demolition, backup alarms on trucks. I guess that's it for what we have on this project. But the jackhammering that you'll hear on a paving project is related to the temporary asphalt that is put up so that when we ramp up manholes and inlets or utility structures within the roadway, what we'll do is we'll put some temporary asphalt around those structures so you don't blow your tires out. It's for your own protection. That stuff's got to be jackhammered out virtually an hour or two before the paver comes by. That's why you have jackhammering at night. So what we plan on doing is try to get that stuff done around 9 to 11 p.m. And I'm going to try to work with my contractor and say, hey, can you get out there, do all your work ahead of time, your prep work, and then, you will have the diesels of the trucks to here, but fortunately they will not stay in one spot for the entire evening. Lady in the back.
Yeah, last time you came through heavy construction, equipment came up out of my yard, my fences moved in and just tore it up. And I'm just wondering, I'll be more vigilant this time. Who do I call about that?
You can call me. I'll give you my card.
Oh, yeah, sure. Heavy equipment came up in my yard My fences moved in, so there's a lot of yard there, and tore it up last time you did work. And I just wanted to know who I would call about that.
Okay, as I said, that would be me. I'll give you my card. I'm responsible for any actions such as that. By the contractor, I'll straighten it out.
At nighttime paving, is it Monday through Friday only or weekends? That's one question. The other question is, will we get any advance notice before you start coming through our sections about nighttime paving, like going through to 5 a.m.?
Okay, generally paving is done Sunday night through Thursday night. We like to avoid Friday or Saturday night paving. Usually it's because of the one, there's higher volumes on the roadway, and two, there's a danger factor involved with drunk driving. You'd be surprised how many people are out there that over the years have been involved with fatalities and paving operations. So usually it's a Sunday through Thursday night deal. Your second half of the question was? Advance notice. Well, Christopher can talk about our website, and we'll, if you're right on the street, you've seen the trailer right near Jackson Street? Okay, we have a field office right on Route 410. I have a project engineer with several inspectors there. They will be probably putting out flyers. Christopher, the gentleman with the red sweater, will be setting up information on a website that will give a schedule of the entire job, not just the paving, but everything else we have. And we have VMS boards there. VMS stands for Variable Message System. Perhaps you've seen them on New Hampshire Avenue today. We're giving you dates on when paving is going to start on the other section of East-West Highway, as well as when work is going to start on the bridge. So right now we're advertising May 3rd for some bridge work starting on New Hampshire Avenue. You'll see the big arrow. They're like 10 by 16, something like that. They're orange. They're on the side of the road. They'll flash a message on the latest activity coming up, when it's going to start, and the date. Yes, ma'am.
Are there, in past road work, there have been very large road equipment parked on residential streets near the actual work being done? Do you anticipate that?
In this case, we actually have we have security yard for the bridge project. If everyone knows where the intersection of Sligo Creek Parkway is and New Hampshire Avenue, we have security yard right there. It's right next to the dentist, and I believe there's a phone store there. There's a contractor in there right now storing some vehicles. With regard to storing any trucks, grinding equipment, paving equipment on residential streets, technically we do not allow that. If that does happen, we'll chase them off.
I was particularly concerned about the Ethan Allen work, not the bridge.
Okay. I did go by today over towards Riggs Road, and I noticed the contractor had brought in a grinding machine already. It's scheduled to start on April 28th. I will be speaking with them about that. It's a service road. The bottom line is this. I don't want to see any construction equipment on residential streets. Okay. So I'm with you.
Hi, a quick question. I noticed you talked about the markings on 410 and something about temporary markings versus permanent markings, if
Yes.
you can comment. And I know you want to get the lines down in the middle, the double yellow lines, but can you also comment on the crosswalks? Sometimes we have had trouble where crosswalks have been missing for years, and I'd really like to make sure that they are there either temporarily and or permanently at the end of the job, or as it's done throughout the job.
That's the way it should be done. I'll just go through a quick chronology of events of how a paving operation occurs. First, we patch any areas that are in distress. And Kate mentioned that we've done a lot of patching in advance. However, I went through there today and I noticed some spots that we're going to have to go back and repair. There's some several areas of distress within the center of town, so to speak. So we're going to fix those. After that, we will take a big grinding machine and shave off 2 inches of the existing asphalt. We don't get it done all in one night. However, the sections that we do grind, we have to put the pavement markings back. And what we do is we use temporary markings, and the colors are either white or yellow, and they're actually just paint. So we'll go back, and I had mentioned about, when we pick up at night, I talked about from 3:30 to 5 is when we put down these temporary pavement markings. So we'll sweep up all the loose material from the grinding machine, usually starting around 3. The pavement is wet. I need to dry the pavement. That takes about a half hour, and then from 3:30 to 5, we're usually putting down the double yellow lines that we've eradicated, as well as the edge lines. After we pave, we can actually pave over the paint. After we pave, we put down more permanent markings that are more reflective and more durable in terms of their material, and they last longer. So what you have out there right now is some pavement markings that probably have not been updated in a while. The crosswalks that are out there, I suspect, I've got to confirm this, but if they're there right now, they will stay. Now, I do have to put those back temporarily as well. In the temporary phase, I will use paint to put back a crosswalk. So in the grinding phase, we will maintain a crosswalk. Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, if there's a crosswalk at a location now, and Kate, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of us taking out any crosswalk locations.
So could I suggest, if there isn't one already, that a list of the various crosswalks in Tacoma Park be made so they can be checked to make sure they're there, in the middle and end of the project?
That's a good idea. I'm sure my guys have already done that.
Staying on crosswalks, are you going to only keep what is there? For example, at Ethan Allen and Elm, where there's a bus stop on both sides of the intersection, there's only a crosswalk on the west side of the intersection. But there's a sidewalk on the other side, on the east side too, and people cross from there to come to the bus stop on the north side. So I'm just curious, are you only going to do one per intersection like that for like Elm, which is a 2-lane road, or would you consider doing one for each side?
Again, that's a design question. I do have the actual plans with me. I didn't bring them up here. It's kind of awkward to speak and have plans with me at the same time. But generally speaking, at an intersection, we will normally have just one crossing unless it's a huge intersection. If there is, at the intersection, if there is an additional, say, left turn or right turn, we'll usually have the crosswalk in the narrowest part of the roadway. That's for the purpose of giving a person a shorter time to get across the street. You don't want a person crossing within a turn lane for safety purposes. As far as locating additional crosswalks, I'm going to have to defer to Kate on that. I don't know the history of the design that went into it, but I would suspect for the most part that the crosswalks that are there right now, Kate, unless you know any, we have not added any additional crosswalks. Yes, ma'am.
I'm at 315 Ethan Allen, and right in front of my house there is a buckled sidewalk, really buckled.
Yes.
And it gets way worse when it gets hotter.
Yes.
I've asked numerous times for somebody to address this. It looks like it would be so easy for you to do it because you have all the materials and really, you just take a sledgehammer, break this stuff up, and you'd think it was simple, right? It's been like this for 2 years. So the city tells me, well, you guys should do it because it looks like it'd be so easy. It seems like it's not part of the design plans. Is there some way I could just get this fixed? For any of you who walk by on Ethan Allen, I'm sure you notice it, and I'm sure it's a real pain.
I tell you what, if it's located within our project, are you saying it's located?
It's totally located within
Okay,
it. It's 5 houses down from
okay.
your site on Jackson and Ethan
All
Allen.
right. I tell you what, even if, these are, this stuff usually occurs obviously in the summer because of the expansion of the concrete. If normally we build or improve as per what's on the plans, in your case you have a situation that deserves attention. If we don't have it covered, it will be. So I promise you we'll take care of it on this project.
You promise. Everybody heard that, right?
A little bit.
I know I say this because I've had emails saying, okay, Chris has emailed me saying Yassine will get back to me, and I talked to Yassine
I'll
in
tell you what
person,
I'll
and
do.
Yassine says they got to ask Baltimore.
No, I'll tell you what I'll do. A little bit of sidewalk isn't going to hurt the state of Maryland. I will give you my card at the end of the meeting, and I will personally make sure that section is repaired.
Thanks. I was just going to ask if you can give us your phone number now so we all have it if something comes up and we don't have to search around.
Okay. I do have an administrative assistant that is very aggressive in the screening calls, so she tends to know the angry people. So, no, my direct number is 301-513-7385, and dealing with the public is part of my job. So it's not a problem to call. If you have a concern that I can take care of, I'd be glad to do it for you.
So perhaps this is a design question, but I was curious about the driveways on Philadelphia Avenue, if they were going to be widened in any way or if they're going to stay the way they currently are.
Generally speaking, the driveways are upgraded because they are considered part of the ADA upgrades. Generally speaking, the back of the new concrete is along the same edge as the back of the sidewalk. So there may be, depending upon an elevation change, there may be some small tie-in with your existing driveway. That sometimes does happen. But for the most part, the size of the concrete apron itself usually stays about the same.
Okay.
What we're concerned about is the slope of the concrete itself.
Right. Yeah, so this is a slope question. So, for example, it's on East-West Highway, you have those two lanes, and it's hard to take a right turn into the driveway and
Yes.
bump the tires. But that will be, the slope will be flatter at the end of this project?
I can tell you what the slope will be. It'll be, I believe it's 12 to 1. I believe for every 12 feet of length of apron, it'll go up 1 foot.
Similar to the side streets? Or-
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That problem with, usually it's the back tire that catches that curb. What we've tried to do is we have to have some type of ramping effect. What we try to do is try to make the driveway a little bit wider. Is what we're fixed with the slope there, but we're aware of that problem with the back tire catching that curb. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of bicycle-related questions. With respect to the work as it's ongoing, frequently when the temporary hole covers are put down, the steel plates, sometimes they don't ramp them very well. Is there going to be an effort to make sure that covers are designed so that bikes don't wreck? Be really appreciated.
Okay. The fact that you're telling me that the steel plates aren't ramped up tells me that I need to have a talk with someone tomorrow about what they're doing with the steel plates. They should be ramped up where you should be able to drive over it with a bicycle with no problem.
Okay.
I will speak to my guys about that.
All right. That would be great for follow-up. The second question I have deals with raising up of the utility covers. Is there a plan to raise those up to grade level once
Yes.
the last lift is done on the pavement?
Yes, our specifications require, and I personally enforce this. I'm the fanatic about measuring things, but we require that if you were to go out there with a 10-foot straight edge, say if you went out there with a 10-foot long 2x4, and you put it on top of that utility fixture, it should be no more than 1/8 of an inch difference in elevation.
Well, I'd encourage you to go out there now. The last time
I've seen
paved,
they're a mess.
there's a good 2 inches.
Yeah, they're a mess.
Okay.
When we grind, what we'll do is we'll go back, and that's part of the process where we the contractor is required to reset all the inlets, utility features such as manholes. There's gas valves, water valves, utility hand boxes. Those have a tolerance of 1/8 of an inch, and that is strictly enforced.
Okay, great. And then my last question, maybe it's a design question, and maybe you'd like me to hold it, I don't know, but deals with what facilities, striping, signage will be made once the project is completed for bicycles. I note that Maryland Code 2602 says that you're supposed to be considering bicycle riders in transportation projects, and up to this point, there really hasn't been any effort to do that, so I'm wondering what the plan is to improve that on 410.
Well, I can let you know what I know right now. Perhaps Kate can elaborate on it. We double-checked this today because we knew it was going to come up. Face of curb to face of curb out there in the right-of-way right now, 2 lanes has a dimension of 24 feet. So that gives you a 12-foot lane. For an adequate bicycle lane, you should have, and it's changed over the years. I remember 15 years ago it was 3 feet. Now it's gone to 5.
I'm talking more about Sharrows. There's no room for that.
Right. Okay. So what we've done is we have in the past, if we have an opportunity to say narrow the through lane, what I'm telling you right now is I got a 12-foot lane. Minimum lane width is 10. So I've got 12 feet to work with in each lane, and I can only go down to 10 feet on that outside edge line. So that means that if you want to have a bike lane, there'd only be 2 feet left within the roadway without widening.
Maybe I haven't made my question clear. I'm not asking for a bike lane. Part of the Maryland transportation standards indicate signage and in-pavement markings that indicate a shared lane for bicycles and cars. It's commonly referred to as a sharrow.
Yes.
We've probably all seen
Right.
them. And it's in the middle of the lane. And at the beginning of the section, in addition to the lane markings, there's a sign that says bicycles may use full lane. That's what I'm asking for, is the signage and the in-pavement markings that indicate a shared lane.
Yeah, I understand. What you're talking about is an additional lane located at an intersection that we've been putting in recently that's actually within the travel lane itself. Unfortunately, you've got to have the width to do that. As far as the signing goes, I'm going to have to ask Kate to let you know what she did with the signing.
If you guys want, I'll email your own standards that talk about this, because you and I apparently aren't communicating enough, because I'm not asking for extra length.
It's exactly the same kind of signs that are on New Hampshire Avenue and Reeves Road that just gone up in the last year.
And Sligo. Piney Branch. Right, Piney Branch.
It's the, you know, the yellow sign that says, what does it say? Bicyclists may use full lane.
Yeah, this is a bit more of a design issue. Kevin's our construction guy. So all of our projects we do, the state of Maryland, Maryland Department of Transportation, we have a bike policy now. Every project, including resurfacing projects, we evaluate for exactly what you're speaking, signs, sharrows. This, in order to place a sharrow, and this is according to those design guidelines, you have to have a lane width between 13 and 15 feet. As Kevin just said, we have 12 feet. It does not qualify for a sharrow. My understanding, and I want to talk to our traffic engineers because they are our resident experts on the bike policy, striping and marking, is if you can't get the sharrow, that's when you place the bikes may use full lane signs. So it's not both. Yes. Right.
But I've got to email into your director and
Yes.
talk and work with Tom Hucker on some of these issues. So
Yeah, so
if we can't work out an arrangement, I'll just work with the director and see if we can.
And that, right, because this is our current policy. So that's what our traffic engineers go by when they evaluate, and we're doing this even on roadways that we don't have current projects, because signing and even additional pavement markings can be done outside of a resurfacing project. So, does that? Okay.
Just really quickly, we are getting some good design questions. I would ask if you have sort of individual design questions. Once Kevin's done speaking, we have plans here of the project. Ms. Mazzaro would be happy to sort of go over sort of individualized situations regarding the design of the project. She's an SME as far as that's concerned, subject matter expert as far as that's concerned, and she'd be happy to provide answers or get back to you in some way, shape, or form with answers. And then once Kevin's complete, again, if you have any right-of-way issues, I know that some of those have come through my office, and there's been calls about those. I'd be happy to have you come over and speak with Mr. Dickerson, who also has a copy of the plans for the project. He'd be able to talk more about the individualized rights of way issues that you might have with the project. Thank you.
Hi, I'm referring to the crosswalk that is at Philadelphia and Cedar Avenue. It crosses over to the library. It's a heavily used one. And what I've noticed over the years is that the white fades, and by the time school is open, I don't know what the date is for doing it or whether it can be done more than once. It's a heavily trafficked area. But the white fades, and you can hardly see the crosswalk, and it's a dangerous enough intersection as it is. But the fact that it fades like it does, especially at the time school is already open, I'd love to see if you could possibly address that.
Okay, as I mentioned, every crosswalk will be replaced. It'll be replaced with the latest up-to-date material that is reflective and more durable.
And that doesn't fade? Is that a permanent? Is that what you're trying to say?
It does have a life to it, but it's certainly better than what's there right now. What you have right now is probably some type of what we call thermoplastic material. There's been advancements made in that type of material over the years, and we're using state-of-the-art products right now.
Cedar Avenue is outside the surfacing area, though, so, but we can put in a request through the SHA to restripe that.
Two just really quick points. One with regard to, and I'm not sure if this is really your thing, so I apologize, but with regard to notices, you were saying you'd be putting out flyers, I guess you meant on the trailer and stuff.
Yes.
I think it's Mr. Bishop, are you like the liaison for us? If you could perhaps at least send out email notices to the community groups, the SASCA and the Maryland 410 Citizens Association, and any others, so that we get some email notice as well, because we're not going to be walking out and checking out the flyer on the trailer all the time.
Put together an impromptu email address. So if you provide me with your information, again, when we sort of go to the grinding and patching phase for this project, we'll be in touch. And then obviously, the 650 River Sligo project, looking down the road, is a huge
Okay.
blip on our radar. We'll definitely be in touch with not only residents and residents groups, homeowners associations, civic associations, but also the folks in Tacoma Park and also your state elected officials to let you know as far as that project is concerned.
Okay, thanks. And then one follow-up to a comment you just made. I, at least while we're here, would like at some point to have the right-of-way issues dealt with in public, so we can all hear about that, because that's a concern, I think, for a lot of people here.
We do have a gentleman from our right-of-way office. We can speak with that in a few minutes.
All right, I want to clarify the scope of the project. The email I saw today said that in Tacoma Park, it's going from New Hampshire Avenue to Park Avenue on 410. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but you mentioned something about seeing construction equipment on Riggs Road. near
Yes,
Riggs
I
Road.
was
So
actually-
is it also going to the east?
Yes, I was going to speak about actually 3 projects tonight. We also have another paving project on Route 410 over towards Riggs Road. It goes from New Hampshire Avenue to Riggs Road. And in going down there today, I noticed that the contractor had, if you're heading in the east direction, I had seen a piece of grinding equipment parked on the frontage road
Okay,
in that area. That's the kind of stuff I'm not too happy about.
okay. Thanks. I appreciate that. If for some of us who live on this side, that side of town, we do go east, and we appreciate it if we know that you're also going to be doing paving work there.
Okay, well, why don't I just give you the quick, it'll take
But-
15 seconds on that. We started that in July, about a year ago. It's due to be done the end of June, and we're due to start grinding. That machine is the grinder. That if you go by, that's what it looks like. It cuts a path about 6 feet wide, so each lane it's going to go by twice. It dumps into dump trucks, and our estimated completion date is end of June. So that entire section from New Hampshire Avenue to Riggs Road will be paved by the end of June.
And is it going to be paved during the daytime or at night, or?
That section should be done in the evening as well.
Okay. All right, so during the day, we should at least have 1 lane of traffic, if not 2 lanes.
During the day, generally speaking, I'm only allowed to close 1 lane.
Okay. In each direction.
Correct.
Okay. Then my next question was on sidewalks. I guess I wanted to clarify, you mentioned you were doing ADA work at all the intersections. And
Yes.
that I've seen and understand. And I've also seen a lot of pavement markings. So could you please clarify what you're doing as far as, are you doing sidewalk replacement for parts of the sidewalk that are cracked and or, say, raised or otherwise damaged? Or is that not part of the project?
I would say yes. There may be some areas that are damaged that may have occurred after the plans were done, but the bottom line is this: we have an inspection before we accept any contract. We'll go through that, and if we see areas of sidewalk that aren't done that should be done, we'll do them.
Okay, because I mentioned that because I've walked the south sidewalk on Ethan Allen a fair amount lately, and there's a lot of pavement markings which look like you're going to replace certain sections, but it's a little disconcerting because at times it looks like you're replacing sections that are in fairly good condition, and then an adjacent section which is cracked is not marked. So that's why I'm asking.
Those markings may be from a utility locating service that we have. Generally speaking, when we're working in an area, we'll identify any underground utilities that are in the area. So are they colored, or are they just white? Or
They're on the sidewalk block, and they're on the sidewalk block, and there's an arrow pointing to it, and in times I think it even says replace.
if that's what you're seeing, it's pretty reasonable to assume it's going to be replaced.
But then what I'm saying is it doesn't make sense. From my point of view, if somebody would just walk it again and make certain that it's clear what you're replacing so that the crew that comes along, because at times it looks like you're replacing sections that look pretty good, and then there's an adjacent section that's all cracked up, and will disintegrate within a next couple of years, and that's not marked.
Okay, it'll happen.
To reinforce what this lady is saying, the markings that the contractor is using or the state's using is basically a fluorescent pink almost, not quite. And they got lines and arrows showing what's going to be replaced. Next to, I'm going to say 413 or 403, there is a section where the curb was taken out, the sidewalk right behind. Now, the curb's already been taken out and gravel put in, so it's not dangerous. The sidewalk right behind it, which is broken up, was not taken out. And it would seem as though there's a lot of broken concrete out there that the state was not intending to replace, based on all the markings that's there. That's not really what I wanted to talk about, though. One other specific item, a year ago, westbound on 410, when you get to Jackson, when you stop to the stop sign on the telephone pole across Jackson, there was a sign saying no right-hand turn, and they gave specific hours. A year ago, the state had a crew come in. They took that sign down, and they moved it back about 100 feet from the intersection. So now a car coming down 410 westbound, if they don't see that sign, when they get to the stop sign, there's no reason for them not to think they can't make a right-hand turn at any time. My neighbor, when she comes out of her driveway, cannot even see that sign. And she's gotten ticketed twice. Now, she has indicated that maybe she needs to memorize the hours that are on that sign. I think the state needs to either move that sign back where it was originally, which seemed to work well, or at least put another sign up. Either that or the city had to change it so they could get more revenue because they wasn't getting enough revenue from illegal right-hand turns. Whatever.
Okay, well...
And the state wasn't making enough money.
We will check the sign, and I will personally check all sections of sidewalk on both sections of these projects that we have on Route 410. If any of you are concerned about not having sidewalks fixed in front of your residences or at a location that you know of, we always check these things, and during the summer is when you'll see the buckling occur because of the heat. Concrete does expand, especially when it gets up into the 90s. You'll see that type of action happening on the sidewalks. We do build expansion joints into the concrete, so if it's done correctly, that should not happen. But we will check all locations of sidewalk for cracking of curb and gutter and sidewalk before we finish the projects. Okay, I'd like to just quickly go over the bridge project on New Hampshire Avenue.
One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the replacement of sidewalks in the 600 block of Ethan Allen Avenue. About 1975 or 76, there were 3 trees planted. And now the sidewalks are buckling at each tree. Okay, is it because of the cement expanding or the tree roots? And if it's the tree roots, whatever, then how is that taken care of?
I would suspect it's because of the trees. Generally speaking, a sidewalk is about 4 or 5 inches thick in terms of the concrete that's put it down. If it's right in front of these trees that you're referring to, I would suspect it's the tree roots.
Okay, then how will that be taken care of? By the city or by the state?
Well, let me ask, is it your property?
No. It's in front of my property, and I am in my 40th year in that house.
Okay. I guess I'd have to take a look at it. I'm not sure if it's in the state's property.
There are three trees.
Okay. We could cut them down and fix the sidewalk. That's one option. If you want to keep the trees.
I want to keep the trees.
Okay, we can probably take a look at maybe exposing the roots and maybe have an arborist take a look at it, make a recommendation regarding any pruning, see how maybe we can build an alternative type of sidewalk that maybe we can. We've come across this before. We can take a look at it.
I'd like not to see anything ridiculous being done.
Well, we only cut down trees when it's only absolutely necessary. However, if the tree roots are pushing the sidewalk up, our options are somewhat limited.
And then the other question I have is the repaving that you are going to do on Ethan Allen Avenue. What is the expected life of the project, the repaving? Because if the road bed isn't sufficient to take care of the heavy equipment that travels that roadway, if you're going to put down 2 inches worth of whatever and you need 4 inches to take care of the tractor trailers and whatever that come over there, then you're just wasting your time with the 2 inches.
Understand. Generally speaking, a project such as this usually gets about 10 years out of that type of paving.
Okay, the other question is, I guess you say, lady, where did you come from? But anyway, sometimes you don't any more than get the street repaved. Beautiful markings, lane markings and whatever. About 6 months later, even less, the gas company, the water company, they come through there and bust the street up for, necessary reasons. But then when they patch it, they make such a mess of your good job. Then
I'm with you. You talk about something that drives me absolutely crazy, and we do try to coordinate with the utilities before we actually start a project. Kate handles that, and what she'll do is when she's designing her project, she contacts all the affected utility companies in the area. She tells them what she's doing. And we basically say, look, if you have something, please do it now before we get in there and pave. Now, what you described occurs frequently. It is usually done if there's a utility suspects a leak of some sort. The problem is that a lot of these water lines, gas lines are old.
Yeah.
And unless you have something that's been replaced recently, most likely you will see a utility come out and check their lines occasionally. They'll have to do what we call a test pit and dig the road up.
Okay.
So I'm with you on that.
I want to ask you another question.
I hope this is just a quick comment. I just would like to say that 2 years ago, you repaired the surface on Carroll Avenue between Ethan Allen and Flower Avenue, and that was a model perfect project. You went through and did the water mains first and then laid down new pavement on it. The road is beautiful, and it looks like it's going to stay that way for a long time. That was a great project, and it should be a model for everything that is done in Maryland.
Well, I recall the project. The water line work did take quite a bit of time. It was a real long length of pipe we had to put in. A good thing is you shouldn't see any failures in that pipeline. That section of road, when we reduced it from 4 to 2, I believe it was in the late 90s. We also did some structural repairs on the road back then as well. So I think that's about the third time I've paved Carroll Avenue. I've been around here for a while, and hopefully that I won't have to pave it for another 10 years or so. Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of you have some design stuff, and maybe Kate can come back and talk to you about that. But quickly, we've got a major bridge job that is finally just starting on New Hampshire Avenue. It's right at Sligo Creek Parkway, and it's going to inconvenience some people, and that's why I want to speak on this for a few minutes. It's going to last about a year to a year and a half in duration. You may not realize it, but right if you're coming down the hill in the southbound direction, there's actually a bridge there just before you get to Sligo Creek Parkway. It's a bridge over Sligo Creek. That bridge deck right now actually has black asphalt on it, so a lot of you may not know it's a bridge, but in the end, the finished product will be concrete. So essentially what's going to happen is we started about a month ago. On the southbound roadway, you're going to see the guys start building a temporary pedestrian bridge in order to maintain access to sidewalks. That's near the dentist office. As soon as we get that pedestrian bridge up, we will start working on removing the median of New Hampshire Avenue right near that intersection. That's that raised concrete median with curb and gutter. It's about 8 inches high. We need to remove that median in order to shift traffic. I've got this project in about 4 phases where we're going to do the, which side's first? The east side first. So what will happen is we'll remove the median of New Hampshire Avenue, put down some temporary concrete barrier. That's commonly referred to as Jersey barrier, but since we're in Maryland, we call it concrete barrier, and I guess it was invented in New Jersey. So we'll put that down, and that'll provide a hard separation between the northbound and southbound lanes of New Hampshire Avenue. With that, we'll demo and rebuild the east side bridge first, and Sligo Creek Parkway will have to be closed from about where the dentist office is right to the intersection. So if you live on Sligo Creek Parkway, you're going to have to go out the back way. And that's being done for safety purposes. If you had seen the diagram of what would happen if you tried to get out of Sligo Creek Parkway and making a left-hand turn, it would be basically a nightmare to do. Plus the fact the bridge is right in the middle of the intersection. The next phase, switch traffic over. By the way, traffic is narrowed to 2 lanes instead of 3. So on New Hampshire Avenue in each direction, there's 3 lanes up and down, northbound and southbound. At the bridge project, we neck it down to 2 lanes each in each direction. So I do the eastbound first, switch over, do the westbound, open everything up, rebuild the median, and then we repave New Hampshire Avenue about 800 feet in each direction of the new bridge. The exact limits are from Linden Avenue to about Erskine Street. So if you live in that area, you'll also have new paving on New Hampshire Avenue in addition to a new bridge. So completion time on that looks like end of 2013. We're going to try to get it done this year. The paving may not happen because of the cold temperatures, but I'm thinking spring of 2014. Okay, quickly, any questions about that project?
Again, I'll just chime in as far as the outreach materials are concerned from my office regarding the 410 project again, regarding the outreach materials as far as the 410 project that Kevin spoke about, the repaving between Riggs and New Hampshire, those materials are sort of getting the final I's dotted and T's crossed. Those will be sent out as quickly as tomorrow. I want to also have folks, there's usually a table here, and I apologize for that, but just to sign up on that sign-up sheet so that we have your information so we can send it to you and, again, share those materials. And then, again, in terms of the project that Kevin is talking about, you did receive a newsletter last fall that was sent via mail from our Baltimore office that had my name on it. You might have received that. There'll be an updated project newsletter, again, where the I's are dotted and T's are being crossed right now, and that could be going out as quickly as a week and a half, just to keep you informed on that. But the Office of Customer Relations and Information will stay in contact with not only you, but also the Tacoma Park officials here to let them know what's going on as far as the project is concerned. Sorry to interrupt.
Hi. Thank you very much for coming and talking about that project as well. And I think advertise. This is a 410 meeting. We may need to go over these things again at another meeting in the future.
Okay.
I have a number of issues. If I can raise them all, and maybe you can answer some, and maybe we need to put some off for the future. A lot of people really are concerned about the New Hampshire Avenue project from what they've heard. I'm wondering if both for this project and the 410 project and Carroll Avenue, when that comes along, if we can have them on the website. Can we have the project plans on the website? Because that will help people to see what's going on right near their neighborhood. That will be very helpful. A lot of people are extremely concerned, both in our neighborhood south of Sligo and north of Sligo Creek in Ward 6, about cut-through traffic for people going in various directions. So I don't think you're going to have any clear answers tonight. We've had a couple of suggestions that my neighbors have come up with. I don't know whether they'll work or not, but for maybe temporary speed bumps on some of the adjoining streets and or do not enter local traffic only signs. So some suggestions there. We're very concerned about how the emergency vehicles are going to get through, because especially ambulances from PG County tend to either take Sligo Creek Parkway and or take East-West Highway to Carroll Avenue and then go across the Carroll Avenue Bridge to get to the hospital. Since the traffic light, I know you didn't mention this tonight, but you have mentioned it before, that the traffic light will be closed at, it will be green all the time at Sligo Creek Parkway. The light at Larch Avenue now is blinking between 9 a.m. and whatever time, 9 p.m. and whatever time in the morning they turn it on. We have a suggestion that running that light, circulating it through 24 hours a day, may make it safer for people to try to get in and out of the neighborhood, because right now the only way after 9 o'clock that you can turn is because when you get a break in traffic from the lights at East-West Highway and the lights at Sligo Creek Parkway, but without having a break, I don't think it's going to be safe for people to be making turns from Lurch. That was another suggestion. And when are we starting construction on this?
It's technically already started.
It's ready to start.
The bridge project?
Right.
Yes.
Right. So anytime soon, anytime it will happen.
Well, I mean, there's not a whole lot of hard work going on in terms of the actual bridge. As I mentioned, they're working on getting the footings for this temporary pedestrian bridge. If you go by there tomorrow, you'll see what they've done in the past 2 days. They've actually formed up for what we're going to have. We're going to have a concrete pour in the next couple of days for the two abutments for the pedestrian bridge.
And that'll be the pedestrian bridge, but then
Yes.
closing off the lanes and actually closing Sligo Creek Parkway. When do you expect that to happen?
I've got to do it in order to put the pedestrian bridge in. I need to put a crane right where the dentist's office is. It's going to be a large crane, and that's when I'm going to have to close Sligo Creek Parkway.
Okay, so that should be coming soon. Is what
Yes,
I think you said.
yes.
Okay, the last question is, the first time we're hearing tonight, I think, is that you're going to be taking out the median, and
Just a small part of it.
I thought not
the entire, not up
Okay.
and down the entire section.
Right.
Just
well,
in the
when we get
immediate.
done, can we talk about landscaping? If whatever part you take out,
Okay.
can we talk about landscaping some future date?
There's definitely landscaping in the project. I think I briefed the Comer Park staff about a month or two ago, and there was a lot of discussion on the landscaping that is planned for the project.
Oh, Kevin, is this on? Yeah. Thank you for coming out here and all of you troops being here. As you and I met, along with a bunch of other people from the city of Tacoma Park on February 21st at the Department of Public Works offices, and we had a very constructive, professional, and cordial meeting, I thought, at that time. That was really just 2 months ago. But since then, there's just been nothing but uncertainty and confusion as to what has been going on your end. Because originally, as you know, back in November, you thought the project would be starting in the end of January, and so there was signs put up, flashing signs. It's going to start at the beginning of February. Then those were taken down along about the time we had that February 21st meeting. And then there's been a couple other false indications that have gotten delayed again. The community, and let me just say that I think I'm probably the only person in the room here from Ward 6, and that encompasses the entire bridge project. So I'm only here to kind of get the ball rolling on some of this information. It's not a substitute for having the community meeting that has been promised to the residents of that area for many, many months, and we still do not have a date for that community meeting. And people are sort of feeling like, well, the project's going to be started. I'm saying what I'm hearing from my constituents before the community meeting happens. So why even bother? What's the point of our having a community meeting? Because everything will be sort of a fait accompli by that. So that's the point of view and concerns that I hear. And then there's a lot of practical questions that, like similar questions that you've already heard tonight with regard to Route 410, that the city and myself and the residents have been waiting to hear from. And I know the Department of Public Works had made some engineering recommendations for modifying some of the crosswalk at Sligo Creek Parkway. And I don't think we've gotten any feedback or, whether this is something you've incorporated into the plans or whether it's not something you were able to incorporate into the plans. And it's just been, the reason it's been frustrating is we haven't been able to get communication coming back as to, first of all, why the delays, why aren't we getting information from your engineers to our engineers as to what's going on, planning, engineering-wise, and all of that. Because basically what I heard you say here 10 minutes ago about is the same information you gave us on at the February meeting. As I said, that was a good meeting, and I felt like we were really getting rolling as a team to work together. And I told you then, personally, that I wanted to help work with you guys as the elected person for Ward 6 to make this community meeting go as smooth and be as constructive as possible. And it's just really hard to do that when we're just not, the communications are all one way. And we just don't know. We still, to this minute, don't know when that community meeting's going to have. And it's put me, frankly, in a terrifically embarrassing and awkward situation because my constituents sort of look at me and they look at the city of Tacoma Park and think, well, what the heck, why aren't they, getting this information to us? So that's why I'm here tonight, just to let you know that the awkward position that we find ourselves in. I don't doubt for a minute that you guys have been working hard on this project back in your offices, but we can only surmise. And, when you don't know what's going on, people's imaginations start getting out ahead of them. It just isn't a good idea for you or for any of us, particularly the elected officials. So I just would like you to be able to, I'm not really asking you for answers right now. Volunteer some information in regard to the reason for the delays, but I do want to encourage you to get this community meeting date for the bridge project nailed down as soon as you possibly can, and not keep changing it. Thank you.
Councilmember Schultz, correct, sir? Yeah, there seems to, I apologize, there seemed to be some confusion in the community as far as what the meeting date is or was for the 650 over Sligo meeting. The first meeting that was put together was for this project, the 410 project between Park Avenue and 650, because of the outcry from the community regarding the project. We did put out the full materials on that, and as folks sort of got the project notice, sort of more and more questions came to be. So this is why we're having this meeting tonight. I can tell you that I'm working with not only Mr. Nowak, but, our office in Baltimore, our Customer Relations and Information Office, to nail down what will be a subsequent community meeting regarding specifically the 650 over Sligo project. So in the same manner that I've reached out to you all in terms of the date for this meeting, sending email notices, et cetera, working with Tacoma Park officials to sort of heighten the awareness of the meeting. Once that meeting date, location, and time is solidified, I'll be in contact with your office and with the community as well to let you know when that meeting will take place. Right now, I can tentatively tell you that it is probably going to happen before Memorial Day, before the week before Memorial Day. Kevin can talk about, some of the issues that we faced, as far as the startup of the project is concerned. But rest assured, as a community liaison, I'm aware of this project. Our Baltimore office is aware of the project. It is a huge blip on our radar. And rest assured, I will be in contact with everyone in this room, Tacoma Park officials as well, to let you know when that meeting date is going to take place, similar as to how this meeting took place tonight. Thank you.
I think that the big issue for those of us that live close to New Hampshire Avenue is, and you say you're going to start soon. I mean, it sounded to me like maybe within a couple of weeks we were going to start seeing lane closures and you were going to close Sligo Creek Parkway. Well, before that happens, we really need to have the community meeting because we need to know, one, where the detour is going. Are they coming through our neighborhood? As Catherine mentioned, are there temporary things that can be done to slow down traffic? I mean, one of the major cut-throughs that we know already exists goes by the corner of Elm and Larch, which is a school bus stop, and there's like 20 kids out there every day, twice a day, plus the middle school and high school kids. So this is like an urgent issue, and this is why I think there's been this clamor from us to have a meeting, because we need to know what you're planning to do.
Okay, the detour route that we have signed right now, the signs for the most part are covered. We will be making use of state-maintained roadways for the detour or suggested detour. Now, I understand your concern about cut-through traffic. In all the years that I've been doing projects in this area, cut-through traffic has always been part of any project that is near neighborhoods. Unfortunately, we cannot regulate a non-state maintained roadway such as Larch Avenue. If the city of Tacoma Park or whoever maintains your roads wants to put a sign up and continue with enforcement, that would be the way to go. But when we have our signs up for the detour, they're going to make use of Carroll Avenue and East West Highway. We will not direct people to these small residential streets that you all live on.
So you're going to run these two projects at the same time this summer, and you're going to have a detour to East West Highway from New Hampshire Avenue?
Well, we've got to get the pedestrian bridge up first, and for the most part, there will be a small overlap, but the paving on the other section of East-West Highway to the east of New Hampshire Avenue should be done at that time. The other paving part of through Tacoma Park Center will be later on in the summer. But then again, I did speak about when it was going to happen. It was going to happen in the off-peak hours.
I think you don't quite understand. I live north of Ethan Allen and west of New Hampshire Avenue. Basically, I feel like I'm not going to be able to get out of my neighborhood this summer. And I think that's, for those of us that live between Ethan Allen and Sligo Creek Parkway, that's our concern, is how are we going to get around today? Well, it sounds like we're going to have to get around in our residential streets. And that's one thing if it's us. But it's another thing if it's all that traffic off 410 or that traffic off New Hampshire Avenue that comes down Sligo Creek Parkway or goes Sligo Creek Parkway to Flower Avenue and on to other parts of town. And I guess I want to hear that you really are thinking about this and you have a plan.
And it doesn't sound like you've been coordinating much with the city, because I think the city would bend over backwards to try to address our concerns.
Well, we have revised our detour plan. Again, as I mentioned, it's all on state roads. It's not on small streets. I can't do this project without closing Sligo Creek Parkway. Plain and simple.
I understand that that's a given. I understand that that's a given for what you're telling us. I'm just telling you that
Use the microphone.
we need this. We need to talk about what the impact's going to be.
We need to talk about what the impact's going to be on the east side of Tacoma Park, because you're hitting us from both directions for major roads that we use to travel on.
Okay, well, Christopher indicated we would be having a follow-up project. If you want me to bring the detour plan, I will. I'll bring a large-scale detour plan with me, and we'll go over the entire plan.
Is that in a form that you can send it via electronic mail to the city for dissemination?
Yes, we've actually been doing it in terms of reaching out to Ms. Braithwaite.
We have the detour plan.
In terms of project information, I've asked that they disseminate that on the city's website. So again, once the finalized detour plan is ready to go graphics-wise, there have been some changes. That'll be disseminated, as well as information regarding the entire project as well for 650 over Sligo.
We do have the detour plan from State Highway. It was changed based on city request because it originally detoured from 410 to Philadelphia and then to Maple Avenue. The detour now goes from New Hampshire Avenue to 410 to Carroll Avenue. So that's the detour.
All right, and so the Carroll Avenue Bridge will not be done until these two projects are done?
That's scheduled to probably come next year. I should have the New Hampshire Avenue Bridge done before that bridge is started. Yes.
At some point before this is over, because I don't know when this is scheduled to finish, that we do talk about some of the construction issues regarding rights-of-way.
Yes.
Before this
We have a lot of
is
410 issues we haven't covered.
Why don't we, Mr. Dickerson, Mr. Albus Dickerson from our right-of-way office, our real estate office is here, so if there's no further construction-related questions, why don't we sort of have a couple of minute break, and then if you have any rights-of-way issues regarding the project or any of the projects, Mr. Dickerson has a set of plans. He'd be happy to work with the citizens as far as everything is concerned, and then we'll go ahead and take things from there. Yeah, if you can come up front and speak with him, that'd be great.
Look, there are a number of issues on design issues and on property rights and rights-of-way issues that need to be addressed in a public forum, on television, so that everyone hears it, so that it's on record, and everyone hears the same thing. And we haven't gotten to those issues yet. And those are the core issues of what we need to discuss here. So I very much appreciate the detailed discussion that Mr. Nowak has provided on the construction. But we have not covered the design issues, we have not considered the property rights issues. And we need to do that in this public forum.
Fair enough. They do have sets of plans, and they're sort of visual sort of answers in terms of individual questions that citizens have. But if this is the way you prefer it, are you fine with that? Okay. Okay.
You're going to talk about rights-of-way issues. Right. So I assume there's some sort of presentation.
We'd like to have it so everybody can participate in the conversation. Obviously, that's our concern.
This is Mr. Albus Dickerson from our Rights-of-Way office, real estate office, and he'll go ahead and address.
And good evening, Albus Dickerson, District 3 right away. I'll start taking some questions if you have.
Thank you very much. So I would say the first issue that we'd like you to address is respect for private property rights. There are stretches of Maryland 410 where the private property goes all the way to the curb. And in at least one case, there appears to be construction of a bus stop on that private property. And I'm wondering what you can tell us about how private property rights are going to be respected, because there was no formal process used in terms of eminent domain or anything like that. Apparently, you're just going ahead and building things on people's property. So I'd appreciate it if you'd start with that.
Sure. This project is being constructed within the state's right-of-way. And in the other project, if we need to acquire property, a notice would have been sent out to the property owners, telling them that the state will be coming out acquiring their property. But this entire project is being constructed within the state's right of way. That's why the property owners did not receive a notice.
Are you sure that that's the case for the bus stops that are being constructed?
Yes. Yes, it falls within the state's right of way.
Are rights-of-way supposed to be marked on either house surveys or plat subdivisions or any other?
Are the rights-of-way supposed to be marked on any of the, either the house location surveys or subdivision plats?
Oh, sure. So you purchase your house, the previous owner may have given you a plat or survey marking that depicts
Okay, but if they don't
your right of way.
show up in there, what does that mean for those of us who are trying to understand what the rights-of-way issue is all about, without having to hire lawyers or whatever? If I look at my house location survey, there is no right-of-way indicated. If I look at the subdivision plat, there is no right-of-way indicated. How are we supposed to know about these things, and how are we supposed to understand what our rights are with regard to compensation, with what the rights are for you guys to do the various things? You know, how are we supposed to know about this if it's not marked?
Right, if you get your title insurance or your deed would give you a description of how much property that you actually own and where's your right of way falls.
Just to be clear, does the state recognize and acknowledge that that there is private property all the way to the curb in I believe it's the 400 and 500 blocks of Ethan Allen Avenue?
Yes. Yes.
And
That's private property, but on this particular project, all the work is being constructed within the state's right of way.
So the state has the right, okay? Let's say the state, you're saying the state has the right.
And fine, if you have the right, I guess then you have the right. I'm not a lawyer, and I haven't had a chance to study the language of my title insurance. Anyway, it still sort of takes me by surprise that there is no communication with the directly with the property owners that these things are happening. That somebody comes out and a big chunk of their lawn has been dug up and something's been put in. They may have had a garden there. Who cares? The frustration, I think, for many of us is feeling that we have no idea what's going on, and this is not just SHA, this is part of the frustration I've been feeling with the City of Tacoma Park, that, you know, Tacoma Park, and so I'm saying this, and you can only answer to part of it, but this is a city that supposedly, you know, basically prides itself on its progressiveness and its democracy and its inclusiveness, and none of us know what's going on, and we come out and we find out, some of us, that there's a big chunk of our lawn taken up. You're saying, hey, we've got the right. Fine, maybe you do have the right. Is that the way we can expect that SHA will operate from this point going forward, now that City of Tacoma has basically given the road to you guys to take care of? Is that the kind of treatment we're going to be looking at going forward?
If I can just try to, I'm Suzanne Ludlow, I'm the acting city manager. Generally, it's our understanding that there's private property, and at the edge of the private property, that then becomes the right-of-way when it comes up against near the street. Now, one of the things that we do have in the city of Tacoma Park is widely varying locations of that right-of-way line. Sometimes it can come right up to somebody's front door, and sometimes it can go into the pavement of the street in front of it. And we've got both of those situations in numerous locations. I think that one of the things that on the individual basis you'd need to look and make sure that you are indeed within the right-of-way for that work. So that's something to look on an individual basis. I will say that, you know, that we do have a widely varying area, and so, you know, the first 5 feet of somebody's yard might actually still be their property.
Yes.
Okay, so is the City of Tacoma Park not going to take any responsibility in this? Again, this is a frustration that I've been feeling, that there's been no real effort on the part of the city to deal with this thing, and suddenly we find out, for instance, at least with one neighbor, that there's a question as to where her right-of-way is. You know, I don't know now. You're saying we do indeed have so I'm ready to think, well, maybe he just has this right. But in fact, my understanding was that we don't
have much right away on my property, and you're saying, okay, there is a variation. Where does the city come in taking some responsibility for contacting in this process, for reaching out to the property owners and somebody reaching out to us and letting us know what's going on? I find it incredibly frustrating.
Just to follow up on the city issues, I think, we ought to focus on the state this evening, and I would request that we have an opportunity at a city council meeting. I would ask our city council members who are present here and Ms. Ludlow to see if we can schedule time at an upcoming city council meeting to talk about this, because this project, for example, SHA says they've been talking to the city for 2 years, and nobody in the city bothered to say word one to any of the affected residents. And that's an issue that we need to address as a city in terms of the transparency that we're getting from our city government, separate from the SHA responsibilities. I don't think that absolves SHA of its own responsibility to reach out to the community, but that's an issue that we need to deal with as a city as well, and don't need to take the SHA's time on that. Does anybody have any other questions with regard to property rights issues? Because otherwise, there's we do have some design questions as well.
One of my big concerns is I'm one of the property owners with the right-of-way issue. A while back, the city of Tacoma Park plopped speed cameras, mostly in my neighbor's yard, but also I'm affected with it. Now, I have the state imposing a 20-foot pad for a wheelchair. I have a fire hydrant, which I'm really glad is there. But my main issue is, what are you going to plop in front of my house next? And what's happening as far as my ability to sell my house? Has anybody thought about that for the affected property owners here?
I mean, but that'd be more of a design issue far as what they're going to do.
No, that's not my question. My question is, has anybody thought about that? This is a community, not just a state highway. People live here. People have homes. And eventually, some of us do think about selling them. I'd like that opportunity. Have you thought about that in your design?
Like I said, when...
Versus just, well, we're going to plop this here. Well, we're going to plop this here. What's coming next for me? It worries me.
Any more right-of-way questions?
Yes. Oh, I think he wants the microphone. Is this on? Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I would like to reinforce, and this, the Maryland 410 Citizens Association, our main goal is to preserve the character of Maryland 410 through Tacoma Park as a residential street. And I would just reinforce that when you're looking at it as, whether you're looking at it as a detour route or whatever, yes, it is a state highway, but it is also a residential street. And we would ask that that be respected as going forward.
And now, especially that we have your information, makes it a lot easier for us to communicate with those that are directly affected.
Some specific issues that I would be grateful if you could address.
Sure.
One would be sidewalks. What sidewalks are being added, if any, and
We
where?
are not adding any sidewalks as part of this project.
Not even at the corner. It looked like there was some being added at the corner.
Well, the only thing we would be doing would be at the corners for ADA access for handicap ramps only. We would not be including any additional sidewalk work. And like Christopher said, they are small, but we have extra copies. We can go over this with anybody in case you don't understand exactly what's shown here, but these are our actual design plans, so anyone is more than welcome to take a look if you have a specific question. But that is part of what we do as part of what we're actually required to do as part of our resurfacing, is at the intersections or commercial driveway entrances. We need to do either add ramps if they're not there, or upgrade the existing ramps if they're not compliant with our current standards. Some of them, as someone mentioned earlier, may look like they're in good shape, But if they're not compliant with ADA, then we will rebuild them.
What about bus stops? Could you talk to us about what bus stops are being added, where, and
Well,
why?
well, first of all, the bus stops are existing, the actual pole and the stop. We do not regulate that. The State Highway Administration does not regulate that. As part of these projects, we do look to provide handicap ADA accessibility to any existing bus stops. Also, we do work with Ride-On, usually WMATA. If a bus stop is necessary, it could be relocated. We had talked with them about the bus stop that's currently out there, and that is a location that they would like to, that they feel is necessary. We are not bus people, so exactly all of their determinations, but we have talked with them. So it's an existing bus stop that we are making ADA compliant by providing a ramp, a curb cut, and then an actual platform for somebody who is disabled to be able to sit there. And then that has to be a certain standard so that a bus would be able to actually pick up the person in the wheelchair. There's just an ADA standard. So.
Okay, I have a quick question on the bus stops in terms of construction. Can you absolutely make sure that the signs are put back in place? And if they're removed even for a day, sometimes the bus drivers don't, sometimes they know where the bus stops are, and sometimes they don't. And they'll see somebody standing there, you're waving the bus stop down, but if the sign's not there, they don't know that they're supposed to stop.
And that's definitely a construction issue that we can ask that they make sure that they maintain that.
In terms of the communication with Ride-On and WMATA, they're aware. In terms of the communication with Ride-On and WMATA, our office does that. The project engineer and actually the area engineer does that. So they make WMATA and Ride-On fully aware as far as the individual bus stop work is concerned to work along a certain path. So WMATA and Ride-On will be copied. They're aware of the project. They know the bus stops. They are sort of govern their bus stops, as Kate did say, and they'll make sort of the judgments as to where temporary stops will be while construction goes on, and then resume back to the normal pattern once the bus stop is completed. It'll be done.
And to my knowledge, there was only one bus stop out there that did not have that pad and access. There's another one that there was currently sidewalk, but we are actually enhancing to allow to meet the criteria for the ADA for the wheelchair pad.
Hi, Kate. I'm Daryl
Hi,
Braithwaite with Public Works. I thought in the design questions you might want to tell people how you develop the design. Do you typically do a survey prior to doing your design work? And the folks that developed your design, do they identify property boundaries? Is that on your site plans?
Again, we consider this a resurfacing project, so we don't necessarily do topographical surveys. We'll use the property boundaries. No, we do not do a meets and bounds property survey. We pull from tax map records and apply that to the information that we have and whatever information is already out there. If there's a specific property owner that, for some reason, they feel that there's a discrepancy in the right-of-way line, and I know we've asked Alvis to reach out to the one property owner, I believe. He's in the process of trying to do that so that if they have some information that we're not aware of. But that is, on this type of project, that is how we determine, how we lay out the right-of-way. If we feel that we don't know exactly what the right-of-way is, or there could be or we might be getting really close, we will usually reach out to an adjacent property owner and we'll ask them for what we call a right of entry, saying this is, we're not exactly sure where the right-of-way line is. This is something that we, usually just for sidewalk work, by the way, not for actual roadway construction. Would you give us permission to do this work in the right-of-way? Or your potential right-of-way?
Are you saying that you simply are assuming you have right-of-way?
I'm saying we pulled it from tax maps records.
From what?
Tax maps, what the county or the city will tax you on your property. There are records.
That doesn't have a property description, though. It's just a lot and a block map.
Right, and then we apply that with our roadway.
Doesn't make
That's
sense. Doesn't make sense. I mean, the documentation that you're referring to does not have the right-of-way. The documentation you're referring to does not have the right-of-way information that you're claiming that you have. I mean, this is not my issue.
Albus might But does that also, and then were you looking at existing plots as well? We do pull existing plots if they're available.
That everybody needs to know, including the city, what source to go to find what the right-of-way is on a particular piece of property, whether it's the plat or something else. And it's fairly apparent from what's been going on for a few minutes that nobody really knows.
Well, we do, at the beginning of any project, we will request existing plots, if available, and pull information from that. And then tax maps. Not always. In this case, I would have to double-check if, I believe Alvis...
Right, say, we'll pull a plat, and also we'll go to the courthouse and pull the deed of the particular parcel to get the exact right-of-way.
It says this lot is excluded from the subdivision. So I think, I'm not saying that, I'm sure there is other documentation, but that's what I want to hear. It takes more than just pulling the subdivision plat to find out necessarily in this community what the actual regulations are.
Then we'll just pull the deed of that particular lot. And the deed will give you the description of that lot.
I just want to mention my house in particular because I live, just for information for people, I live on Jackson Avenue. And when they laid out the street, there was practically no right-of-way on the other side of the street, but the right-of-way goes way into my lot, much further than normal. And so, you know, I'm not too happy about that because I got a sewer where I don't want it, you know. And I think, unfortunately, in my desire to find out, you know, exactly what's going on, it wasn't too encouraging. So I think because, I'm not apologizing for anyone, but I think because we live in this old community that was built before, you know, there were size regulations and setback regulations, that this is something that you could easily run into. It may be less true on Route 410, but...
No, I think it's a permutation. Definitely Route 410.
Oh, yeah, that's, of course, yeah. Well, I'll just...
Another design question, Mr.
Let me get to, well, in terms of the impact of traffic on the roadway, we heard that, you know, we can expect this to last maybe 10 years, but we do have a lot of heavy traffic that goes on that and heavy vehicles that use that, in many cases avoiding traffic on the Beltway. You'll see that whenever the traffic reports say the Beltway is backed up, that you get a lot more traffic on 410 because people are hearing those radio reports, and that does include heavy truck traffic. And I'm wondering whether the state has considered putting weight restrictions on Maryland 410 through Tacoma Park.
I would have to follow up with that with our traffic office and our pavement division office. That's something that can be done independent of a project, and there's certainly many roads out that we have done weight restrictions, so I would have to follow up on that one.
Okay, I'd be grateful if you would follow up, and I think it is a
that.
particularly timely issue, particularly if Maryland 410 is supposed to be an alternate route during these other construction projects. And I see somebody else wants to ask a question. If I could just ask, I think there's one kind of key question that I think if you're responsible for design issues in this area is a really key one. Are you aware of any plans or even discussions of any widening of Maryland 410 in Tacoma Park?
No, and it's not even shown in the highway needs inventory at this point, which does look out 20, 30 years.
With respect to the design of the subsurface, the roadbed I know was one of the questions was asked about, and the type of pavement that you're using. I don't know if you're using a different type of pavement than you use now, but the section coming downhill at Jackson that pavement tends to buckle from the trucks and the buses in two ways. One, it tends to rut, and the other thing is it tends in warm weather to buckle when people put on their brakes, and that tends to force the pavement into waves. Will you be using the same type of pavement and replacing it with, or have you thought about a concrete pad for 30 feet or so before that intersection?
Our pavement mixes, there are a few that are better with the rutting issues. A lot of it is the existing pavement that's out there. It's concrete with an overlay on it. That makes it very difficult for that 2 inches of asphalt not to buckle. We're looking more and more at concrete overlays, what you're just discussing. We have not done a concrete overlay on top of existing concrete that you're discussing yet, at least not in Montgomery or Prince George's County. I'd have to see if we've done any. I know it's something that our Office of Materials is looking at. We've done a few areas recently, and we're looking at more something we call white topping. Unfortunately, that's really works better when, or really only works when you have more asphalt out there, because you take off the top few layers of asphalt and put concrete. So it's something that, basically, I guess, it's something that, it's an issue that we have in many locations, and it's something that our Office of Materials and Technology is continuing to explore, because our only other option then would be full reconstruction of the concrete.
Just to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
You're replacing the current pavement with probably the same thing. And
I'm not sure how old that pavement is that's out there.
2 years, maybe?
How many is that?
Two
Then
maybe?
it probably would
Maybe
be a
one?
similar type mix, yes.
Yeah, and so really the 10-year estimate we heard earlier is probably not an accurate estimate that we
If
can
it's
look
in
at.
an area of high rutting, then
2
that
years,
would,
maybe.
that could be.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
we
that's
do
good
have,
for the city to know, because I think you all have the reconstruction responsibility if
Yes.
there are problems now.
Correct, yes. And that is an issue that we have on a lot of what we call our composite roadways, where we have the old concrete and we put the 2 inches of asphalt. And especially the situation that you described with downhill buses, trucks, we do have rutting issues. And like I said, that's why we're continuing at State Highway, not my office, but to look for alternate materials as well as construction techniques so that we can put something in that would be a more permanent fix. Is there another design-oriented question?
The city has put in some ADA intersections in the area that of 410 that you're working on. Will you be replacing what the city did?
If they are non-compliant.
Thank you.
And we had an audit done, what we call an audit of all the existing sidewalks, so we would know it's compliant or non-compliant, including that portion.
Can you, off the top of...
I believe we are replacing some of it, because our audit
I'll
showed
check
that
with
was
you
not-
privately on...
But I have the plans here, so if you know the specific location.
Thank you.
And that's not necessarily the city's fault. I know State Highway, we've had a lot of encounters where contractors do not build, and a lot of it has to do with the slopes, with the ADA. They'll make things steeper than they should be. And that's part of why we do the audits now. So it's not necessarily that it wasn't designed properly or something like that, but the ultimate construction. Yeah, and we have an audit that we did of all the sidewalks in Tacoma. Actually, we did an audit, State Highway did an audit of all the sidewalks along state highways a few years ago. And then we're trying to continually update them and work with anybody who does work on our road as well, so we're continually keeping our database up to date.
Hi, Kate. Just a couple of questions. The city had sent an email, I think, to Christopher Bishop, and he passed it along to a few other State Highway staff in regard to some questions, particularly about this current project. One of which was about the lane edge, and I heard Kevin say earlier that the minimum would be a 10-foot lane edge. And does the state need any formal request from the city to do the 10-foot lane edge?
No, and we've been talking with our district traffic office, who makes that recommendation, and they said as well that they would be okay with going to a 10-foot lane.
Okay, that would be great.
But we will be getting a formal response back on those issues, but go ahead.
And then in terms of the design work, I know nobody's here that has raised this issue to me before, but there was a lot of questions raised about the curb ramp work planned at Carroll Avenue at what we call B.Y. Morrison, the kind of old gas station park that's there, as well as on Grant Avenue. And so I just wanted to know if there's been any changes made to the design plans for that curb ramp work, or if it's pretty much remains as was originally designed.
Is this the area where there's the existing bricks? And,
Yeah, the brick.
we aren't going to be replacing the bricks. I'm not aware of it having changed since your comments. If there was a specific concern.
I think some of the issues had to do with whether or not the smaller patterned concrete work, it's not the traditional 4-foot square type concrete markings. There's actually a 2-foot square pattern within the concrete. So the question was whether that could be maintained any time that it's been removed. And then also concern about the brick and whether the brick would be replaced.
I'd have to follow up with the pattern and the concrete. The brick, what we normally do next, we have a lot of areas where we go to do ADA upgrades, especially of ramps that may be all brick or some sort of material. The actual, just the ramp part itself, we'll do in concrete, and then we will to our best ability, try and match whatever the existing material is around it. So we had a few instances where there's a lot of brick and we took it all out and put everything back in concrete, and we're not doing that anymore. So I'll just have to double check on the pattern for you.
And then lastly, just the detectable warning mats. Are you using the red versus the yellow, and are you using
that was a
the
good question.
inlay?
Did you make a request for a certain color?
Well, I know people have requested more the brick paver type detectable warning mat, and I didn't know if a decision had been made on that.
If that's what's been requested, our standard contract allows the contractor, as long as there's enough discrepancy in the color to choose, unless we dictate a color. More and more we're doing reds and bricks. It's not usually a problem. I'll just have to check. At this point, it'd be too early for them to, I hope, procure any specific color. But it's something I just have to check with our plans. But if that's something that is of preference to the city. Have they put in the pads?
To the best of my knowledge, we have received a request from the community regarding that. That information was passed along to the area engineer for the project and also the project engineer. There will be, as I understand, yellow, what are called truncated domes on the sidewalk ramps put in. They are reddish. Red is open. The color is open into interpretation, but it will most closely resemble brick and not be yellow, as many folks had raised their objections to. Thank you.
I don't know if this was covered in the last question. I don't think so, but are there any plans to replace existing curbs that now exist? And if there are such plans, let's say would the curb be replaced in exactly the same place? Would there be any effort to move the curb backwards onto someone's beyond maybe an encroach on property that's now private property or on a property line?
We would only replace curb, and I have the plans here, so if you have a specific location where we need to for the reconstruction of the ADA ramps, and we are not planning to move them back there, to go back where they are currently located. If there were some other curbs that were in a state of great disrepair, we would replace them in kind as well. But there's no plans to move any curb lines as part of this project.
Okay.
And like I said, we have we have extra copies. We can certainly go over, and either you can keep them, or if you want us to explain, or you want to look at a specific location, we can do that too.
All right. So would you consider a movement of a curb line an encroachment or something you'd have to negotiate because it could encroach upon a person's property line?
As part of, this project is really a resurfacing project. It's not a project that we just look to upgrade, like I said, the ADA, or if there's some deteriorating sections of sidewalk or curb lines. It's not something that we're looking to add any sort of capacity or address anything like that. So it's, like I said, unless you have a specific area, it should be going back in kind. It's not a project that we're looking to do anything other than
okay, thank you.
Resurfacing.
One question that was punted back to you had to do with crosswalks. Are you adding, was there any consideration given, are you adding any crosswalks as part of this project?
I am not aware of us adding any crosswalks as part of this project. I know that the city has, I believe, a standing request in, which our district traffic office, they're not here tonight, but they're the ones that actually evaluate for crosswalks, and if we needed to add something into the project, or markings can be done really at any time. And I know they're due to get a response back to the city. I'm not sure what exactly the status of that study is. They actually do studies in order to add sidewalk or crosswalks, make sure that they are compliant with our design standards.
I would just encourage you to talk to your colleagues and try to bring that to closure, just
Yes.
because, so that it can be done as part of the same project, so we don't end up having to redo things or put in new sidewalks or something.
Right, and the city has made that request, and that's an ongoing. We're looking at that. So
it's just about 9 o'clock. I think we should probably wrap up at this point, and thank you everybody for coming out and for all of your great questions for SHA tonight, and also the members of State Highway who were here. And I think I'll just hand it to Chris to follow up.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow. Before we leave, I do have an impromptu sort of sign-in sheet. If folks can come up, give your name, address, and email address so I can keep in contact with you regarding projects. There's also some printed materials. I'm not sure if everyone sort of received the project notice about that. It does have the project engineer and area engineer's information on it. And then and I think we've sort of tackled all the rights-of-way and design issues, but just like to make those materials available to you. And thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you.